My name is Howard Duncan, and I am your host. We will be sharing with you today Keys to Living Longer and Stronger, Part 2. We have an exciting group of panelists today, and we will be discussing the contributions of African Americans to medicine, health, and science, past, present, and future. One of our guests will be leading out in the form of Ken Brandon II. We're asking that you would just sit back and enjoy your time and space during our time of sharing the contributions of African American inventions or contributions to society. Thank you so very much. And we know that God is richly blessing you. So if you would like, join with me as we have a word of prayer over this session. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you so much for this time. We know that the world is standing on the foundation that you have given Black and brown individuals. We pray that you would help this meeting to inform, educate, and encourage someone today. This we ask in Jesus' name, amen. So the program today is going to be like this. We're basically going to call in medical student and PhD candidate Ken Brandon II. We're going to ask him to come on in and give us a keynote address, and then we're going to have an intermission with a song, and then we're going to go right in and ask our co-host to come on in, Reverend Benjamin Green, and then he will be taking full force of the panel discussion. And without further ado, let me introduce to you our keynote address guest for the moment. All right, Ken Brandon II. He is graduated from University of Alabama in Huntsville, Alabama, along with Oakwood University with dual degrees in chemistry and chemical engineering. And he has aspirations for applying his engineering principles to study disease progression and develop therapeutics. He applied for dual MD PhD program at the University of Maryland. And after 1 year of medical school, Ken's journey had a changing encounter with God when he found himself in the hospital for a whole month long. And after being forced to take an official leave from his medical school experience, Ken found himself in a place emotionally that only God could fill. This experience was his turning point in life, and Ken decided to full force go headlong into medicine and engineering, not to just make a living, but to have a unique angle to use science as a ministry. Ken is currently engaged to his college sweetheart for 7 years. And we just want to welcome Ken Brandon II into the house right now, and just have your time and have your way and share with us what those African-American contributions are to medicine, health, and science. Ken Brandon.
Thank you so much for the introduction. This may be one of your first times meeting me, but it's always a pleasure, and it always feels like family whenever us believers can come together and talk about such an important thing of health. And so without further ado, I'm gonna share my screen. I have just some visual representations. And when I was a kid, my parents used to always have to create these little visual illustrations to keep me engaged. And I just always feel like I'm not the only one in the crowd that needs them. So as I share my screen, we'll get right ahead to it. Alrighty. So I titled this Black American Healers, From Between the Lines to Headlines. And the title is very specific, especially the subtitles of Between the Lines, because whenever you hear the quote, read between the lines, is basically trying to infer something that wasn't explicitly said or explicitly illustrated, but nonetheless has the significance in its meaning. But headlines are the storylines. Those are what we go by. And so in this segment, I'm hoping to bring what is considered between the lines to headlines. And so this picture is actually one that was actually placed a lot of places, and it illustrates what we consider to be the face of medicine. If you would bear with me on this moment. So this guy right here his name is Dr. J. Marion Sims, and he was considered the father of modern gynecology. And as you can see, we have a Black slave she's sitting on a table, and it seems very calm. He's examining, but what is really going on is that this picture, this illustration, is actually trying to glorify something that was a very dark time. There were surgeries that were being done to Black women against their will, without anesthesia, without the consideration of whatever else that they were trying to do. And so he's considered the father of modern gynecology, which is the study of the female reproductive system. And these figures, along with him and other people, are what we consider to be the face of modern medicine. But that's not the case. The American myth. So there's an author by the name of Lamont Wilson. He's a doctor. He wrote A Black Man in White Coat, a doctor's reflection on race and medicine. He said this: the stereotype of Black intellectual inferiority was so ingrained that for a Black person to do as well or better than white and Asians, they had to be exceptionally bright, earnest, admiration, and condescension wrapped in the same package. And so Frederick Douglass, he said this. He said, I've observed this in my experience of slavery, that whenever my condition was improved, instead of its increasing my contentment, it only increased my desire to be free and set me to thinking of plans to gain my freedom. I found that to make a contented slave, it is necessary to make a thoughtless one. It is necessary to darken his moral and mental vision, and as far as possible to annihilate the power of reason. He must be able to detect no inconsistencies in slavery. He must be made to feel that slavery is right, and he can be brought to that only when he ceased to be a man. And so I'm sure right now you're asking, all right, you showed us this guy who did certain things to understand more about female reproductive health. But then you showed us this myth of American myth from Lamont Wilson about how there's this storyline that there is a Black intellectual inferiority and that the face of medicine are people like Dr. Sims. But Frederick Douglass, who used to be a slave but found his way to freedom, is expressing that the more that he gained in whether it was opportunity or he improved his condition, nonetheless, it only increased his desire to be more free. And so what we see is that the two people that I will be talking on today will have a similar storyline of being more content, not with their current reality, but with a desire to be more free. So this, the motivation is that when you look at a puzzle, you can only see the beauty of it when you realize the value of all its pieces. And so while we might have been etched out of different parts of modern medicine and its history, nonetheless, in order to really understand how far medicine has come, we have to first take a dive into those that have been left out of the story, but nonetheless have had a significant impact to where we have today. So the two people that I'm going to focus on in this short moment is Patricia Bath and Daniel Williams. So let's say you were looking at Pastor Howard one year and enjoyed his sermon, and then a few years later, you're noticing that each time it's getting worse and worse. You're not as clear, and now it's very hard to see. And this condition is called cataracts, and it's the #1 cause of blindness worldwide. And what happens is that we're able to see clear because we have a clear lens, but with cataracts, that lens becomes clouded. And so the only way to clear this up, to prevent going complete to blindness, is to remove this cataract by removing the lens that is clouded and replacing it with an artificial one. However, this had been previously done with using a scalpel. So what do I mean by that? So the limitations with cataract surgery was that we had to use a knife to kind of etch into the eyeball, and eyes are very small, so it can be very hard to be very specific. And so this lady named Patricia Bath said, what if we use lasers instead? Now, she was at UCLA, and everybody looked at her because she was bringing a solution that didn't exist. Lasers in the 80s were only used for military, but she believed that they could be applied here. But UCLA said, one, we don't believe you. But two, even if we did, we don't have the instruments to do it here. So Patricia actually left the country. She went to Berlin, Germany, and worked with collaborators there to actually create this laser to be used for eye surgery. 6 years later, she became the first African-American woman to apply and receive a patent. And she changed how cataract surgery, which affects 50 million people to this day, she changed how we do surgery. And so this is what she said to a school students. Believe in the power of truth. Do not allow your mind to be imprisoned by majority thinking. Remember that limits of science are not the limits of imagination. So Daniel Hale Williams is the next guy that I want to talk about. So this was a man that was one of 3 doctors in Chicago. There were 15,000 African Americans during this time. We're talking about in the 1800s. And we're talking about 15,000 African Americans that could not go to a white hospital, but there were only 3 black doctors for that whole area. And then furthermore, he had a student who applied to every nursing program in the area, and each one denied her because of her race. Fed up, he decided that the only solution was to actually create a hospital. And not only create a hospital, but create a school where nurses can get trained. But he took the high road. He not only allowed for whites and other races to get treated at the hospital, but also to be employed. And so what happens was Daniel Hale Williams created the first integrated hospital in America called the Providence Hospital. 2 years later, after creating this hospital at 35, at 37, he formed the first open heart surgery to a man that came in after being stabbed, and they realized that he was going to die. And so he realized that the only other alternative was to try something that had never been done before. And 50 days later, that guy walked out and lived for an additional 20 years. He says that anything is possible when it's done in love, and everything you can do should be done in love, or with it will fail. Now every hospital is integrated, but who was the first to integrate a hospital was Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. And so with the time limit, I was able to talk about two influential figures that have changed medicine to this day. But there are a few other people that, if you have time, I would love for you all to check out: Henrietta Lacks, Dr. Dr. Winton Hinton, and Dr. Charles Drew. If there's anybody on this stream, or if you're a parent that has a child that's less than 18 years old, if your child looks up one of these figures and sends me either a text, I have my phone number up here, or an email on one, their name and their age, two, maybe a hobby or what they would want to become when they grow up, and then three, what's something that inspired them about either Henrietta Lacks' story, Dr. Winton Hinton's story, or Dr. Charles Drew's story. So I thank you for your time, and looking forward to for those emails.
Student Ken Brandon, could you just touch a little bit on the very significant Henrietta Lacks? Please share us some more about Henrietta Lacks. I think it's so very important.
Yes, for sure. So Henrietta Lacks was an African-American woman who was dying from cancer. And when she was in the hospital, they collected cells, which is what they would do when they're trying to see maybe the progression or the stage of the cancer. And they realized something very interesting about her cells. They continued to grow in a lab. Up until that point, scientists, researchers, doctors could not consistently grow cells in a lab. At some point, they died. And with that death went the death of trying to see any experiments. So for those who may not know how all basic science research starts, that leads to therapies, that leads to different treatments, begin on a cellular level. They move from testing something or a drug on the cells to then moving to mice and animal models, and then eventually to humans. So we didn't have step one. And so everything was always experimenting, but we could never actually experiment from a research level before we got to the humans. And so her cells were growing in a lab. And this was mind-blowing. But the ethical issues that came about was, one, they continued to use her cells to grow in the lab without her consent. And when she passed, without her family's consent. Furthermore, certain scientists actually patented her cells and began to sell them to other labs. Labs such as labs in other countries, other continents. And so experiments around the world were being done with her cells. Billions of dollars are being generated by companies that were selling her cells, but her family were not able to benefit. And what this has done, though, is that it's changed how we do science. It's led to many vaccines, it's led to many drugs and therapies. And furthermore, it's actually changed how we view medical ethics and research. Her story is the foundation of what we now consider informed consent in medicine. So that's just a little bit on Henrietta Lacks. There are institutions that have been named after her. She actually received an honorary doctorate. So there's been a lot of now clarity on how significant her contribution, even in her passing, had on medicine as we know it today.
I definitely want to thank you so very much. We will have you to come back with us during our panel discussion. We still have a few more moments, but I just want to say that society with the affluent in charge, and that's arguably affluent, because when you think of affluence, you think of influence and how your life means much to others rather than your money. In terms of affluence, melanated, Black, brown, Afro-American, African individuals have literally presented and proclaim the wealth that the world sees today. And we have to be reminded as parents and surrogates and guardians that our lives must be meaningful. We must mean something. We must be woke and stay woke in order for us to understand that this is to perpetuate. We must continue our Black history. We must add and build upon it so that we can indeed make sure that when we shall lay our heads down to bed at night, and if perchance God does not allow us to awake, that our living will not be in vain. And many who have gone on before us, many who have spoken, lived, and died, created, and innovated, were individuals who were able to press on in spite of the obstacles, in spite of the difficulties. And when it's been said that we are 3/5 of a person, that we're worthless, our lineage and our heritage proves otherwise, that indeed Black, brown, melanated, African American, Afro-Africans have contributed to world society, and that we cannot have that taken away. It is not taken away because we're living in the luxury of our forefathers and parents, of what they sacrificed for you and I. Let that sink in. And at this time, we're going to have one of our sisters from the diaspora, Miss Genny Towdah, to share with us a song as she comes forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm going to sing this song and I hope that it bless your heart. Amen.
There is power in the name of Jesus. There is power in the name of Jesus. There is power in the name of Jesus to break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. Oh, break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. See, there is power. There is power in the name of Jesus. There is power. There is power in the name of Jesus. In the name of Jesus. There is power. There is power in the name of Jesus. In the name of Jesus. To break every chain. To break every chain. Break every chain. Break every chain. I can hear you say break every chain. Break every chain. Break every chain. Break every chain. There's an army rising up. There's an army rising up. Oh, there's an army rising up to break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. Oh, break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. There's an army rising up.
Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it, and God bless you. Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Genny Towdah. Now we have before us an opportunity to share in our session today. We have our co-host and moderator for this afternoon for our panel discussion, Reverend Benjamin Green. He is the senior pastor of the Abiding Truth Ministries. He has a satellite in Newport News, Virginia, as well as New Jersey. And he is an author. He is looking to continue the work of the Lord. And at this time, I just want to turn it over to my friend and co-host, Pastor Benjamin Green.
Pastor Duncan, thank you so very much for the introduction. It's just a pleasure being here and just to know that there's something significant taking place. And certainly those that are joining by way of Facebook and YouTube, we want to welcome everyone to our seminar on past, present, and future contributions to health and sciences made by African Americans. You know, we may be coming to the end of Black History Month, but certainly not the end of our genius and scholarship that we have made and continue to make here in our sojourn in America. We don't apologize, but we will lionize, eulogize, and tributize our trailblazers on whose shoulders we stand, that have fought through slavery, injustice, racism, yet still somehow managed to break barriers, shatter stereotypes, conduct research, discover treatments, provide leadership that improve the health of multiplied millions, and change the face of health and sciences in America and the world at large. We're in for a great time. We're going to have us a discussion on 4 topics that are just bless you and just kind of stir you. You know, this is going to be informational, it's going to be inspirational, and we hope for transformation to take place in our lives. If I can indulge your patience for a moment, I'm going to read from our biographies, those that will be a part of this discussion. We have Lamont Wilson is a direct support professional for Team Chemist, which is a community base that support people with developmental or intellectual disabilities and their families. He is a co-health leader for New Life Seventh-day Adventist Church. He is a life coach and support staff of Allegheny East Fit for You retreat. He's also a fitness guru and a speed walker. You may have to run to keep up with him. A cooking assistant and is involved in prison ministry. He's a prison ministry leader. Well, next we also have Karen Patterson-Christie. She was born April 20th, 1976. She studied culinary arts in Hazleton, Pennsylvania, and in San Francisco, California. Karen has traveled around the world, experiencing different cuisines, working for the Department of Defense, and ultimately coming back home. Karen is a great chef, a wonderful wife, a mother to 3 children, Donald Christie Jr., Dana Karen Christie, and Kayla Amelia Patterson. She is also the author of the ebook, Sip Your Way to a Smaller Waistline and Start to a Healthier You. I think we all would love to have a smaller waistline. In her spare time, she likes to travel and read various books on financial, investing, business, health, and wealth. Next, we have Darius John, who was born in the Twin Island state of Trinidad and Tobago. He grew up in the village of Fyzabad on the island of Trinidad. He is the 7th of 11 children, 7 boys and 4 girls. Darius himself is the father of 1 daughter, Darielle. Darius also obtained his primary education from Forest Reserve AC School and Pepper Village Government School. He then attended Saparia Junior Secondary School and Fyzabad Comprehensive School, where he completed his secondary education. Darius holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in theology from the University of the Southern Caribbean. He also served as a minister of religion in the South Caribbean Conference of Seventh-day Adventists for a brief period before migrating to the United States. To Darius, the minister is not fully equipped for ministry until he is able to educate his flock on the prevention and cures of disease. He has therefore embarked upon the field of study in natural health and is a certified natural health professional. He has since completed his studies with the International Institute of Original Medicine, which is IICM, and is a naturopathic doctor. Next, we have Alton Parris. He's a chemist. He is a graduate from Dobbins High School and holds an Associate of Science degree in Medical Technology and a Bachelor of Science degree in Chemistry. Alton has worked in the medical field for a number of years and has been a follower of Dr. Sebi. While at Jeans Land Episcopal Hospital, he personally witnessed the limitations of pharmaceutical medicine. He has done research on diabetes and how it affects different groups of people. He is a firm believer in natural healing and that food is thy medicine, quoted from the one and only father of medicine, Hippocrates. Well, last but by no means least, we have Ken D. Brandon II. We just heard his biography, but just in case you're joining in late, you don't want to miss this. He's a graduate with degrees in chemistry and chemical engineering from the University of Alabama in Huntsville and Oakwood University's joint dual degree program in 2018. With aspirations of applying engineering principles to study disease progression and develop therapeutics, he applied for the MD PhD program at the University of Maryland. After only 1 year into his medical school journey, Ken had a life-changing encounter with God when he found himself in the hospital for nearly a month. After being forced to take off an official leave from medical school, Ken found himself in a place emotionally that only God could fill. This experience was a turning point in Ken's life and helped him to realize that God has called him to the field of medicine and engineering, not just to make a living, but to have a unique angle to use science as a ministry. Also, Ken is currently engaged to his college sweetheart of 7 years. I think I hear bells in the making. We're about to go into our discussion. Put your hat on, tie down, because we're going to talk about some things that invariably is going to affect us all. We have basically three types of people in this world: those that make it happen, those that watch it happen, and those that arrive late and ask what happened. So as the information is being shared and we have this discussion, find yourself in the fray and make sure that you apply these things that can certainly bless you. We're going to be talking on topics such as steps to optimal health, how to be a trailblazer for health in your family, chronic craziness that hinders our families, and a healthier you, free your mind. So let's delve into this and let's just see how this will go as we start off by talking about steps to an optimal health. How do we obtain optimal health? How do we get the best health that we can possibly get during our sojourn here? Anyone can just jump in with any of the information that you may have that would be a blessing to our listeners and viewers at large.
Good evening, Dr. Green, Pastor Green. This is Alton speaking. You said steps to optimal health. I think
Yes.
I think first and foremost it begins with diet. And when I say diet, choosing the correct foods. And when I say correct foods, I basically mean like we're all human beings, but we all have different genetic makeups. You understand? There's a reason why some people are darker skinned, lighter skinned. Some people are European, African, things like that. So I believe from that perspective, you have to approach optimal health from that perspective. For example, if you take a plant that's endemic to like Alaska or somewhere else and put it in a warmer climate, you're going to have a different thing. It might not survive, and it might not be the optimal environment for that. So I believe optimal nutrition begins with proper food, water, sunlight, and basically just proper nutrition, and most importantly, exercise and rest. So those are the things, I think that those are the gateways to optimal health and nutrition.
Okay, and that's really good. Now, you mentioned several things. You also mentioned water. We all know that water is good, it's essential to our life. But what type of water? Because there's been debates on that. You know, regular faucet water, that's no good. Even spring water that comes from whether it's Deer Park and various places, they say that's no good. Then they say it has to have water filtration. What type of water? You know, how do we get around all of these things? Even when it comes to vegetables, at one point, tomatoes were good, and now they're saying it's an inflammatory. So how do we really get around these things?
There's a lot of talk, a lot of debate. I'm not an expert on everything or all of those different things, but what I do know for a fact is they've talked about the pH of water, you know, alkaline water versus acidic water and things like that. What we do have to understand is that the body maintains itself at an optimal pH. So as far as alkalinity, you know, you want to kind of move closer to what your body is doing to create that homeostasis, that balance. So basically, anything acidic would be more detrimental to your health. For example, soda or that has, you know, CO2 in it, basically the carbon dioxide, which is a waste product, by the way, right? Anything over acidic is going to damage your bones and things like that, because it's going to pull away the minerals that you need to strengthen your bones. And let me give you a prime example of that. Look at the coral reef, the barrier reef. They found that the water was becoming more acidic and the coral was actually dying based on that. So I'm just putting that into perspective. I'm not a proponent saying that you should have alkaline water 9.0 or something like that. But the human body is very good at maintaining its own homeostasis. But I do say acidic water is not good.
That sounds expert to me. And you'd also mentioned, as we bring others in, as you mentioned exercise. You know, what type of exercise? Does it have to be involve going to the gym? Is it something we can do at home? Should we do it while in bed before we get up? What type of exercise should we do, and how often?
You know, the funny thing is, and I'm looking at Lamont, and I'm like, I see him click off because Lamont, he's an exercise guru. But being a bodybuilder, I was actually on my way to becoming a professional bodybuilder. And I'm not speaking against that topic, but I found out this is where the health, I guess God just spoke to me, because I found out that a lot of us, specifically African men, were dying of prostate cancer at an early age. A lot of the bodybuilders and professional ones, I was noticing that they were not on the scene anymore, but they were quietly not saying anything. And because I received medical journals and things like that, I read about it, where it was the overconsumption of animal protein that contributed to specifically Black men's prostate enlargement, right? So that's one of the things. And I used to lift a lot of weights and I thought that was healthy. But as I got older, I realized my joints weren't as good as they used to be. So if I had to recommend any type of exercise, and I see Lamont, it would be natural things, push-ups, pull-ups, things like that, sit-ups. And most importantly, I'm going to leave that for you, Lamont, the walking aspect of it, you know, that cardio aspect of it. So, you know, those are the things I would recommend, natural body exercise that you can do.
Thank you. Lamont, okay.
Yes. Awesome, Alton. On the exercise part of it, yeah, walking. Walking is something that is awesome. I've been doing walking for many years now. I had some health challenges a couple of years ago, and my doctor said, and I was up almost 300 pounds, and a lot of people don't remember me as that, but I was there. I got pictures to show, you know. And my doctor said, herbal doctor said, you got to move, Lamont. So I went to a fitness camp and the Allegheny East camp meeting where we would do speed walking in the morning. So the counselor came and started doing, and she was doing speed walking. She was ahead of the crowd. So I was ahead of the crowd with her, just walking. And she showed me some steps how to do speed walking. And I've been in several speed walking friendly competitions, and I'll let Alton tell you. He knows about some of the places where, you know, we came in at. and the speed walking friendly competitions. But in order to do speed walking, it does take, your water, your eating right, your exercise, your body resistance. I do a lot of body resistance, and doing body resistance, you can be just as strong as those who lift a lot of weights. I still go to the gym from time to time, and when I do my body resistance, I'm able to go in there and do just as much as those big guys that look at all the muscles, and we're lifting just about the same amount of weight, and they all pumped up, and I'm just coming in there looking regular and just able to lift just as much as they are, or more.
So with that in mind, walking, for example, how should one start that process? I mean, if they just decide to walk around the block once a day, is that a good start, or what would you recommend?
That'd be excellent to start at your own pace, as fast as you can go, because the more more calories you burn, if you want to lose weight, you're walking, your movement. So the fastest you can go would be that good for you, towards your heart rate. It helps your heart rate as you move, the faster you go. So I would say, that's what you would do.
So just a casual stroll may not be maximum benefit.
No, I wouldn't walk like a turtle. I would walk a little faster as I can until I can get more speed. And the more speed you go, like I said, the more calories you will burn, and the more better you will feel walking.
I think for everyone viewing, when they hear you say that you were once 300 pounds and they look at you now, and they would find that hard to believe. But yet we've also seen that transformation with Reverend Al Sharpton, who was once a robust person that now is slimmed down quite well. He's probably healthier now than ever before. So this optimum health, how do we really define that? What does it mean? Is it the same for everyone, or is it just as I desire to define it?
Well, like Alton has said, it's a balance. We call it 8 laws of health. To get your sunlight, get your rest. Trust in divine power, because we know that God, above all things, God wants us to prosper and be in good health, even as our soul prospers. So, we want to depend on God, and like I say, you want to get your water in, you want to get your exercise in, you want to get your sunlight in, and you want to be a balanced person. You want to eat right, as Karen's going to tell you about some good foods that you can cook up for yourself. You want to have the right nutrition and interpersonal relationship. You want to be a balanced person, a healthy person, and that helps a lot to overall balance of your exercise and everything.
So here's the $1 million question. We're in a time frame where we do our best not to offend people. We don't want to body shame or anything like that. So how do we broach the subject with someone that is overweight, maybe almost hopelessly obese? How do we not body shame and still broach the subject in talking about obtaining optimal health? How do we get around that?
I don't mind jumping in on this one. I got a quick question for not just the panel, but for anybody watching. It's more rhetorical. What are the symptoms of hypertension? And for the average person, there's actually no symptoms. They used to call it the silent killer. And I think that oftentimes we made health seem to be a thing of body type. And I think that you can see extra fat, and okay, that doesn't seem to be good. Yeah. So there are some more, physical features of an unhealthy lifestyle. But one thing that is for sure is that health, you don't start getting an oil change for your car because your car is oiled. Like, it's part of how it runs, is getting an oil change, getting gas. And so the idea of maintaining a system for its proper function is actually a default belief in every other system but our health. And I think that coming to a mutual understanding that our health, whether it's from temperance with our diet, rest, movement, is all these components that allow for our system to function. No matter what we're doing, whether it's an athlete or someone who is a teacher or someone who's a student, we all need our body to function. And so I think that removing it from a either fat or skinny box of health because not all diseases present with weight. You know, there's a lot of conditions that you would never know that this person has a chronic condition. I know that's a little bit later down in the panel discussion, but it's good to kind of see it more as a consistent routine that allows for optimal maintenance. And so once again, I think the best word is temperate. So if they say that the average person should sleep anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, and you find yourself getting 3 to 4, then that's not temperate. You know, if you find that there's general guidelines, and I didn't get a chance to mention, but previously mentioning about whether it's the diet and really finding out what's best for you, I think that's also a consideration. But overall, I think that if we kind of stretch our mind of seeing health as a part of living and not something you do because you're overweight and you want to look better.
Okay, that's good. So let's merge this second one. Let's segue into how to be a trailblazer then, since we're talking about this. So Darius, in terms of being a trailblazer for health in your family, what steps would you take and recommend to be a trailblazer, to actually start things off?
I think a very important point is to seek to educate yourself as to what ought to be. Now, when you are educated in terms of health, and I'm not expecting you to know everything, but at least know something. I've encountered individuals who say, well, I know this, I know that, I understand this. But when you question them deeply, then you have a problem. And then you understand, well, why the situation that they are experiencing is actually happening. So I would encourage individuals to invest in yourself, get some good books, get some good recommendations, and learn some things about health so that you can implement them in your daily life. Because for most of us, we need to have a lifestyle change. Too many people depend on a diet change. Well, the truth is, it doesn't really work. Why? Because if I'm having a diet change, I change on the diet, and when I begin to feel good, then I back away and go back to my old lifestyle, and that is creating more issues. So when we have reached the point of educating ourselves and we begin to practice that, we can then lead our families into a richer, healthier experience. Someone mentioned earlier in terms of diet and what we eat. Now, this is absolutely crucial to our health. And we need to understand as individuals that I am responsible for my health. You are responsible for your health. It is not the responsibility of anybody else. It is your responsibility. And if you love yourself enough, then you will do whatever it takes to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish. And so as we eat, I challenged my church some time ago. I said, now look at your lunch plate. What do you have there? Make sure that this represents health. If it doesn't represent health, then why are you going to put it into your body? Too many people enjoy the luxury of saying grace while we are eating or before we begin to eat. But the truth is, sometimes when we look at our plate, we should be asking God to forgive us for what we are about to put into his temple. Because we need to recognize also that this body is the temple of God. It is God's property. And we are not left to guess as to how we should treat our bodies. We should treat our bodies with respect, with dignity, because this is God's possession. So as we put fuel into this body, if the fuel we are putting into our body cannot properly run our body, or in other words, cannot give our body what it needs to function properly, then we are doing harm to the temple of God. So if we truly want to be a trailblazer, in our family, then we need to follow these couple points I laid out. And then we need to develop what is called self-control. Not because it tastes good or looks good, it is good. Now, if we can reach a point of developing and mastering self-control, oh man, we have done a great deal toward our health. Now, our health. Now I know I have 2 minutes and I finished 1 minute and 99 seconds. So, go ahead.
And that's the thing about it, because we all know that junk tastes so good. So for Karen, the chef that have studied culinary arts, how do you become a trailblazer? Let's just say if your family, your extended loved ones, they are junk eaters, they have no concern whatsoever for optimal health or anything else. How do you set the pace? How do you run before them, knowing that people love junk? They love things that are injurious to their health.
True. So one of the things that I do when I think about how to be a trailblazer in my family, to me, it's very simple because of my grandparents and them opening up a vegetarian restaurant where at a time they didn't cook with meat. You know, their vegetables were fresh in an area where people were eating hot dogs and hamburgers like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So when I think about that, I think about the things that you buy when you go to the supermarket, right? You buy what you're going to eat. So if you're going to eat and you're trying to get healthier, you're going to buy fruits and vegetables, fresh fruits and vegetables. If you can't get fresh, you can buy frozen. And at the least, if you can't get frozen, you can get canned vegetables, low sodium. So I think about buying what you're going to eat. That's like the one thing that can help you, can help everybody. Because if you buy, junk food, that's what you're going to eat. If you buy fruit, you're going to eat that. You have to think about it in a way that very simple, not complex. Because when you think about it in a complex way, you get confused. I like to think that you are what you eat.
Okay. Now, this sounds good, but how is that measurable? How is that transferable? Let's just say if you get married in another year or so, whatever the case may be, and you're at the dinner table and you're conscious of these things, and maybe your wife may not be. How do we, in a measurable way, set the pace and transition from our normal diet to a healthier diet?
So you want to take small steps. You always take small steps. That has worked for me, like I said, for a long time. Not trying to do everything all at once, all in one day. Not trying to transition all in one day.
So say if I'm the child, I don't want to eat that stuff. I want some honey buns. I want some Captain Crunch cereal, if they still make that.
Right.
So how do we meet with that resistance to show the benefit of eating healthy?
Okay. And again, especially when you're dealing with children, I have 3. So it's all about buying what you're going to eat. So if you as a wife or a husband is trying to transition the rest of the family, you're not buying those things. I mean, it's to me, it's really that simple because that's the way I transition my family.
So slowly but surely, or is it cold turkey?
You can't buy honey buns and expect the children not to want them, right? But if honey buns are not around, how can they get it?
That is true.
I mean, that to me, it's really that simple. I think we might be complicating it a little bit. And I have small children. So, junk food is like at the top of their list. But by me not buying those things, we've had, and replacing them with other things. That's another thing. Can't just not buy it. You can replace it with other things there, and you can bake other things. How about we start that? Instead of buying those things, we can start to bake muffins and say, hey, let's try this in replace of the honey buns.
Yeah, that's quite a transition there, because everybody like that sugar rush without realizing the damage that it does.
It is.
Now, let me go back to vegetables for a moment. So how important is it, the type of vegetables that we may get? Some say organic, some say no, some say grow it yourself. Where does it stop in terms of the chemicals and everything else? At times we think we're eating healthy, and only to find out later on that's not good for you.
It's not good.
So how far do we go to?
So I'm a fan of organic. Okay. And I believe that it is a choice. I really truly believe that it's a choice. I eat organic. I try to eat organic. Other people that I know, they eat conventional grown vegetables. My opinion on this is, as long as you're eating apples and you're washing them and cleaning them, I think they're both good. Some people cannot afford organic. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't want somebody not to eat apples because they're very good for you because you can't afford organic. You understand? I think as far as the vegetables, I think they're very important. There's a lot of confusion out there with, not confusion, but some people think that, certain types of vegetables you shouldn't eat because they don't agree with you. And on that point, if you are allergic or, have some sort of a way that the vegetable is affecting you, then I don't think you should eat it. But as far as if it doesn't work out that way, I think you should eat it because I think they're very important as far as the fruits and minerals and things of that sort.
Okay, I appreciate that. Alton, let me ask you this. This chronic craziness in our families. I mean, every family has at least one that may be highly dysfunctional somewhere out in Mars. How do we get around that in light of still trying to obtain optimal health, still trying to be a trailblazer, trying to get to the place where the Lord can get the best out of these vessels of clay, but we got craziness in our family that hinders the entire process? How do we deal with it?
Now, Pastor, I gotta ask you for some clarification on that chronic craziness. I don't want to go the wrong angle here. So when you say chronic craziness, what are you specifically?
That is quite expansive. It could just be in terms of, we're talking about eating better. We're talking about exercising and so forth. It could be in the opposite direction to where they go too far. Every single thing. I mean, it's almost like today, we're germaphobes. I mean, you go into the restroom and you're standing there for 15 minutes, don't want to touch the door, come out, somebody could, that could be taking it too far. So some of the chronic craziness that hinders our families could be they're going too far in terms of health, health consciousness, or it could swing in the opposite direction to where I don't even want to be bothered. I'm old enough. I've been drinking this. I've been smoking this all this time. I'm okay, and not realizing they're setting a bad example also.
Okay, so I see a suggestion like systematic chronic situations that affect our communities. I saw that in the chat. Now, systematic. I think everything starts from the parent. From when you were born and how you inherit certain things, like even the craving. Your blood is very important at transmitting certain things to your offspring. So you may be a diabetic, and some of those things are transferred to your offspring. But I believe through proper nutrition and things like that, if you're not type 1 and you're type 2, for example, you know, you can actually mitigate that. Also, a lot of things are predicated on, and I go back to nutrition because as I said before, I follow Dr. Sabi, and I really wanted to prove him wrong. But some of the things that he said, I actually physically and personally tested, and I'm like, wow, this man is right. So, you know, if I see it, touch it, believe, and I know that it works, I'm gonna speak on it. But a lot of things, like starch, like some of the things we were taught were real food aren't food. Like growing up in Jamaica, we used to use white flour to make kites, and basically it was glue. So, you know, now this is something that we eat. And over a period of time, you know, all of your different organ systems work together, you know, in uniform to actually make an overall function of your body optimally healthy. So when you start clogging up different areas like your bile duct and things like that, your kidneys, when you have over acidification in your body from constantly ingesting these things. And remember, you were taught from you were born. You didn't grow up eating these things. You were taught this is good, and over a period of time that became good. So if you can mitigate that from the beginning, from the beginning of the child, the grandparents and the parents, then you can have some better changes to this chronic craziness. And lastly, I also want to say there's things in our that have been traumatic to specifically Black people over a period of time, and we have to find some way somehow to stop repeating that cycle of bringing that trauma back to the forefront and then reliving it. You understand? I know we're talking about Black history, but Black History Month, and I agree with you, Pastor. We don't have Black History Month. We have all our lives is Black history. Every day is Black history. You understand? So, you know, these are some of the things. I think you have to catch it in the beginning from the parents. And I know I talk too much, but I'm gonna hand it back to you.
No, this is good stuff. This is really great. Ken, anything you want to add on that in terms of this chronic craziness and things in the community that affect our communities?
I think it ended, you know, Alton ended it really well when he converged on where it starts, the root. And it's kind of hard to distance our reality from our upbringings. And one thing that was interesting about, you know, what the other panelists have been sharing about our diet and even the mindset that's required in order to, you know, whether it's to say no, I think is understanding what we're up against, whether it's our mental perception, you know, because when we eat certain things that are good, when we eat an apple pie, when we eat, you know, a sweet potato pie, like desserts are looked forward to. Like those are the grand finale after a dinner. And why is it something that we look forward to? Is because our body has a reward system. And what cravings and I'm really feeling such and such, those are our mental perceptions of what produces dopamine. And so dopamine is our body's reward system. It's how people get addicted to certain drugs and whatnot. And so when we have a certain association, you know, whether it's this, I like the sweetness of that, we have a positive emotion attached to those things that we eat that may be harmful, but yet alone it's a positive emotion. And because there's a positive emotion associated with those food groups that are unhealthy for us, we get a dopamine release. And so our body rewards ourselves because we have a positive emotion that is associated with something that's actually harmful for us. And so you have someone who's craving a drug that is harmful for their body, but yet why do they crave it? Because they'll get a dopamine release and their body rewards them for it. So when we're thinking about, you know, you have a family member that really likes chicken, you know what I mean? Fried chicken, wants to eat fried chicken. You know, the empathy is the idea that it's both a decision and there's biologics. But what is fueling the biology of the dopamine release is the mind. And so when we talk about educating the community, taking responsibility, is understanding that our positive emotions and associations with certain things allows us to perpetuate. So if we have a positive association and kids are growing up to see the positivity with certain food groups, and you see commercials and people living so much happier because they ate a salad instead of, you know, McDonald's. Like McDonald's slogan is ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm loving it. It's a positive emotion associated with a very unhealthy meal. But so if we can really fuel the positivity towards more healthy food groups, it will become contagious. Our body will begin to reward ourselves. I don't know if anybody didn't used to work out and then started to work out. When you first started, you probably didn't like it, had to, but after a minute of doing it, you find yourself, if I don't work out, I don't feel as great. And it's because that you now have a new association. And so now Lamont's on here talking about how to, walk and all this other stuff. And they'd be like, I would never imagine that you were this amount of weight. It's because now he has a new positive emotion. And so his body rewards that, because that's what we're all searching for. And there's a quote that says, we're all searching for pleasure, even someone that hangs himself. And so I think that kind of seeing those associations with what we believe something will do for us, and then whatnot kind of has that type of thing. So I think that's the same when it comes to chronic craziness and then our diet as well.
Excellent. And that's the crazy part about this, is that lab rat, he's going to run across that grate, run the risk of the shock, but the pleasure on the other side is what's going to keep him going back and forth. And because of what's in the ingredients in so much of the junk food, and the commercials, it's systemic. It's all geared for one thing. And as far as our health, at large, society really is not all that concerned about our health as much as just the dollars and the cents, that love for the money and everything else. But it is up to us to kind of break that cycle and just insist on something very, very different. It would be nice if healthier products didn't cost so much money. It may not change anyone because, you crave what you crave, but my goodness, you go there and you feel like I got to work overtime just to get a healthy meal. And some things that I guess supposed to be healthy, when you look at the ingredients, it's almost like, well, I would have never thought that years ago. We had all these homeopathic remedies. If you got a bad cold or whatever, get some chicken noodle soup. That knocks out everything. Chicken noodle soup and ginger ale in the Black community, that's medicine. It's not really, but this was our mindset almost, without realizing the sodium content. So it's pleasurable. It tastes good. Our mind suggests to us that this is going to help. And that also becomes a bit of chronic craziness. Yes, Alton?
Yes, I just want to add to what Ken was saying, because it was very valuable information. There's two things, that reward mechanism for your body. The gut and the brain are connected. You understand? So, for example, if you drink caffeine and you try to stop cold turkey, and I've done it, I actually ended up in the hospital because I got this massive headache. And if I took a little bit of caffeine, like a little bit of green tea or something, the headache went away. So these are basically drugs. All of these things they're preaching to us is drugs. And because I work in the chemical pharmaceutical industry, I can tell you for a fact that those artificial colors aren't good for you. Yellow number 5, what's that? Red 40. That destroys your eosinophils. That's part of your body that builds up that's part of your immune system. So all these artificial things, and I meant to just say there's a difference between natural and artificial. And to speak on the pesticides part of it, yes, our organic is much more expensive, but it depends on where you go. If you go to Whole Foods, you might pay 30% more, 50% more, but you should shop around and try to get organic as much as possible. But yes, there's a difference between real and unreal, natural and unnatural. Things that are natural, God put them on earth. The things that are unnatural, we made, and that's not good for your body. That's all I want to say.
That's excellent. I'm hoping that 72% and 86% cocoa chocolate is good for you. Somebody told me it's good for you. They say dark chocolate is supposed to be good. I guess we all have certain things. And I was once a shrimpaholic. I mean, just something about shrimp I just absolutely love. And I had to really just cut it out and then cut back severely, just for safety's sake. Well, let's turn the corner on a healthier you, free your mind. Sometimes a healthier me is not a free mind. It's not something that we necessarily want as much as sometimes if we have a health scare. I had a health scare going on 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, that everything was different. I was dropping things, and this was over a period of a day or two. And I found myself stumbling, and I looked back and there was nothing that I tripped over. And it just So I said, I better go to the hospital, get this checked out because it's not the norm. And the doctor said, you dodged the bullet. There was a small stroke in the century, and, I'm not overweight. It's not like I'm exercise that much other than, just I walk from my house to the car and back, kind of the norm. But it scared me enough that I walked in there and didn't come out for 3 days later with permissive hypertension that everything changed then. I just changed so many of the things that I was doing before that. But I was never really a big meat eater. I didn't eat meat anyway. So, but how do we get our minds to be freed with the whole transition of, I'm going to be a healthier me?
If I could dive in there, but I want to go back for 1 second. And you see, individuals need to understand that all this madness that's going around, as we just discussed there, that is helped by the very things that we ingest. If we are eating foods that are not in harmony with the way our bodies was designed to function, then it affects every aspect of our lives. And if it is affecting every aspect of our lives, we need to look at health beyond the physical. It's not just the physical, because what we eat transfers into the type of blood we have. The blood supplies nutrients to the entire body, supplies nutrients to our brain. Now, if that is defective, then our brains cannot function properly. Then it becomes not just a physical problem, it also becomes a spiritual problem. The body and the mind works harmoniously one with the other. When one is affected, the other one sympathizes with it. So we need to understand that when we eat, we are not just eating for the physical, but we are also eating for the spiritual.
Excellent point. And I've heard in recent time, one of my sons that live in Germany, he's a complete vegan, and he was saying the importance of eating to your blood type. And that's something that you just, you don't even hear people talk like this. I'm talking about widespread in our communities, but these type of things are really good. So it's almost that concept of back to Eden. I think Lamont want to say something about that.
Yes. When we talk about, Darius made an awesome point. I'll just give you a personal example. When I was overweight, the things that I was eating, I give you an example. I went out on a date and we went to Pizza Hut, and I got 18 breadsticks, and my date was saying, well, you ordered for both of us. I said, no, it's just for me. What you going to have? And so, I had overeaten and stuff, and I stopped eating those breadsticks, and I started drinking smoothies, and, I started feeling better. Start walking after every meal, and as I started walking after every meal, I saw the weight, start coming down. And also, as we well know, let this mind be in you that's also in Christ Jesus. So the mind, I felt so much better. Clarity. I used to have migraine headaches, suffered migraine for years. When I started changing what I was eating, the migraine headaches just went away. No medicine, no aspirin, nothing. Haven't had no migraine headaches in years. So waistline.
And your mind is freed up as a result of that.
Yes.
And your mind is freed up as okay. And that's and that's what I think the viewing audience at large need to realize, is that it's just a change. We'll never have the change that we need to change until we change the thing that need to be changed. If we don't change what need to be changed, we'll never get the change that need to be changed. So when we finally hear information, it should cause some relative transformation so that my mind says, I'm going to be okay with this. And some things, as you all know, it's an acquired taste. Something, you transition from a soda or a milkshake to a healthier drink, sometimes it's like, ugh. And sometimes if it doesn't look appealing, it won't go into the mouth. But we need to free up our minds by just realizing, listen, this is what we have to do. All right. Anyone else as we turn the corner and we're about to bring this in? Yes. Alton. Mm-hmm.
Yes. One last thing. Back to the craziness. I know, Ken, maybe you remember this from reading back in historical days when they were sending the sailors out overseas to go on missions and things like that. And they only brought like rice, or some people brought corn. For slavery specifically, when they were feeding them cornmeal, corn was not digestible because it didn't have niacin or in it. We couldn't process that. So over a period of time, becoming deficient in a specific nutrients, you become crazy, because now your body can't operate optimally. And if you have something that your body can't break down, it almost like it makes you well, specifically niacin, lack of that specific vitamin was making people crazy. And they used to go, oh, those crazy Negroes, they used to say that, but they weren't crazy. They were lacking the proper vitamin and minerals.
Wow. This has been absolutely phenomenal. We can't thank you enough, and certainly on behalf of those that are viewing by way of Facebook and YouTube, we're thanking the panelists for their genius, for their contribution, for the things that they have shared today that can make for a better us, so that that optimal health that we're reaching for, we will be able to attain it, because it is attainable and it's measurable. So thank you so very much. We appreciate you. As I turn this back over to Pastor Duncan.
Oh, let's give everyone a hand clap. This was exciting. Oh, I am thoroughly infused with this information. I mean, we kind of knew these things, but to have every one of you online, and Reverend Green, you've done so great job. We got to do this again. I'm so happy because knowledge is power. And when we give knowledge to our community, we are opening up the door of success to someone who's listening. And I just want to thank you for allowing your expertise to be given back to our community, because now you are creating Black history. You today have become a record in the annals of time that will help others become better individuals in the future. So once again, I thank you so very much. Today has been one of our forging, navigating moments of being online, and we just want to continue to serve you. I want to thank you for entering into this virtual space, and I trust that you were informed, inspired, encouraged, and challenged to take steps to optimizing your health. If you've enjoyed this presentation today and you choose to continue to search for these things on the website, please come back and stop by our channel and stop by our page on Facebook and pray for us, and we'll pray for you. But if there's someone out there today who would love to give towards this ministry, we want to make it an opportunity for you to give towards this ministry and to be able to just to partner with us as you see the need for the information and other topics such as this, to know that we will work with you, and collaborating with you is what makes the world go around. So once again, I want to thank the guests. I want to thank Genny Towdah, who had to leave us. And I just want to thank everyone, Brother Alton and Darius and Karen and Lamont and Ken. And we just appreciate all that you've done today. You have made this afternoon, a great success. So at this time, I am going to pray for the health of us all, and then we will show you a way in which you can give towards the ministry. Let us pray. Dear Father in heaven, under the sound of my voice, many of us for years have known what to do, but our minds have failed us because we love the reward of the sweets and the fried chicken and the high enriched foods and sugars. And we come before you now confessing that we have come short of your glory and that we need help. We've heard ways out. We've heard antidotes, but right now we need power to say yes to change. Strengthen those who will be leaving at this moment. Be with those who are still online. And Lord, allow us to receive greater awareness and implementation of what you require of us to do. Strengthen us, guide us, bless us, be with all of our male health, be with all of our female health, and allow everything to be done decently in order that we might be a better historian of our health. Strengthen us to this end, and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.